Wish to thank University of Lahore to have invited me here to share some things that I have in my mind. I would like to share a few things to show why I am like this, why my family is like this, why did we choose to do what we do. I think that's very important. I've hardly talked about it, but I think it's important for you to know and understand. It was 1967 when I went to Government College, Lahore. I was the fourth generation of my family. My great-grandfather had graduated from that great institution in 1868. If my father had not married my mother at the age of 40, I would not be the fourth. I could be the fifth or the sixth generation, breaking all records of Government College. In Government College, I fell in love with a subject that was economics. And the first lesson that the lecture from Shoaib Hashmi Saab was how important culture is for a country to rise economically. A country without a strong cultural base cannot in no way survive as a rising economy. We just heard the gentleman from India. Most of the things that he discussed, the greatness of India, was the basic cultural aspects. The cinema industry, the film, the internet, the IT industry, the television, the serials in Afghanistan. Well, at that time, something else happened. I read a book. It was called Future Shock by Evelyn Toffner. Now this book was, there was a discussion of socialists and psychologists, and their discussion paper was turned into a book. Now future shock, they talked about that future shock is a disease. It's a disease which many nations will go through. Because now, this book was written, I think, in 60s, early 60s, that the way the world is going to progress, the way the scientific, technological wave is going to come, certain nations will be left behind in that. And they will suffer a disease called future shock. So I was quite disturbed because I thought about my country, Pakistan, a third world country, So how technologically from the 60 onwards we will gear up to withstand this onslaught. And many years later, I was traveling with a unit. We were climbing from Pint Dadan Khan towards Chuha Sadan Shah in the Salt Range. And it was 11 o'clock at night. None of us was going to sleep because we were going to shoot in Chuha Sadan Shah the sunrise. And we stopped over at a trekking hotel on the road. And these are the areas where people generally sleep at about 7:38 because they wake up 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning to go into the fields. We had about 35 people in the unit, 4 or 5 vehicles. We stopped, we walked into this restaurant. There was hardly any seat to sit. And it was packed. And they were sitting with their hookahs and looking. And this enterprising tandoor wala or this restaurant wala had put in a 50-inch screen And all of these guys with their wonder in their eyes was looking at Madonna. That was MTV which was going on. So I said, yeah, this is the future shock. They have not graduated. To listen to and see her gyrating movements, it has happened too soon for them. It is very sudden. Well, that's how I grew up. And most of the work that our organization did was towards understanding, development of mind, appreciation of arts, puppetry, drama, and creative arts. My father, Rafi Peer, was sent by his family to study law at Oxford. He was a rebel. He grew up in the times when the Khilafat movement was on. He was literally adopted by Maulana Muhammad Ali Johar. And as a young kid, he would follow him all over India, giving fiery speeches against the British Empire. And there was a time when his father, our grandfather, thought it was time for him to get out of this political thing. He's too young. So he was sent away to study law, and he lasted in Oxford for about 6 months. He was a hockey player, and a skirmish happened between him and the bursar of the college, who called him an Indian dog, and he broke his leg with his hockey stick and ran away from there. He crossed over the Dover, he went to Germany, he went to Heidelberg, studied philosophy, and eventually ended up, sorry, I might not bore you, but it's very important, this moment. So he went to, after studying his philosophy, he went to Berlin, and in Berlin one day he saw this advertising board which said, classes for the speech fanatics, auditions from such and such day. So he thought, it is interesting, I have the time, let me polish up my speech. But for what? For political oratory, not for drama or theater. So he went and gave his audition, and at that time in the hall, in the theater, the director of that theater was sitting, a great man called Max Reinhardt. Max Reinhardt is the father of the modern theater in Europe, the teacher of Bertolt Brecht. And at that time, Berlin was at the top in the arts, in the performing arts, cinema and theater. That was the best place to be in. The people, the technicians from UFA Studios went and built Hollywood. UFA Studios was one of the finest studios built by mankind at that time in Berlin. They had lost the World War I, but it was before the World War II that the energies of the German people were put in literature, in arts, and theater, and cinema. And my father told me, yes, I didn't know when I went into this great world of theater and drama while learning my speech lessons. I drifted into this beautiful world. So he was 18 when he left this country, and he was still working there. It had taken him about 14 years working with the Berlin Theater, where he worked with the finest and he was trained by the best in the world. That was the time when the Nazis moved in, and he was caught one day by Gestapo, and he was locked up for 2 days. He was from the British domain, and eventually after 2 days he was presented to Marshal Goebbels. Marshal Goebbels was Hitler's propaganda chief, and he gave him a proposition which he could not refuse. The proposition was that he should take over Voice of Berlin Urdu service as the head. He was the right person for the right job at the right time. He performed that duty for 2 days, and then he escaped Germany and came back to India. He was trained by the finest. When he came back to India, this place was 200 years behind times in his training. what he had learned, the craft of cinema and the craft of theater. India was 200 years behind at that time. So, rest is all history. His works, his teachings, his students, the way he worked with them, he came out with the skills of writing drama and created the only film that he ever made in his life that he was involved in was called Neecha Nagar. This film was the winner of the Grand Prix at the Cannes Film Festival 1948 as the best foreign film. After partition, he gave all his life for radio, theater, and on his death in 1974, his sons, all of us, thought that we should do this work as his dreams, the way he thought arts to be. And we could understand at that time the importance of arts in a society, the importance of arts in a country. We went into many forms where we worked. We worked in the forms we worked with children quite a lot because that was very important. Now we have audience which used to be children. Now they bring their own children to us. That's how long we go with our audiences. For 19 long years, Rafi Peer Theatre Workshop ran 2 theatres in Karachi. And now, as you know, we started this festival. We thought it was very important for Pakistan to have an international festival. I'll not forget the day my younger brother Faizan, who's left us, in 1990, and he said, I want to do an international festival. So I just looked at him. I said, what do you mean by international festival? He said, well, we should invite about 300-400 people from all over the world, and let's have a puppet festival. And I didn't want to break his spirit. And I said, fine, okay. He wanted some money from the company so he could exercise and work on that festival. So in 1992, we saw the first festival with 375 delegates from 47 countries of the world which came into Lahore and performed. From there, the festival mushroomed and we started a theater festival, theater and dance festival. Then we went into the music, Sufi festival, and we were at one time running about 4 festivals. And then it became very difficult, so we brought all of that under one umbrella. So the festival, Lahar Festival, became the 3rd largest festival in the world. It was a difficult task, but it happened. You know, at the last festival that we had in 2008, when it was bombed by, I don't know who, it had something like 2,000 performers, 1,500 performers from all over Pakistan, and 500 performers from all over the world. Today we run a museum of puppetry, where we have representation of about 72 countries. It's the 3rd largest museum of puppetry in the world. Now somebody says, why? Why a museum of puppetry? But why not? Our children, you know, they need it. They have, you need to build the imagination of a child. And puppetry is a very strong tool today in the world through which a lot of work is happening. Puppets are used for teaching also. And we have prepared a lot of modules where puppets teach history, where puppets teach mathematics, where puppets teach so many things, you know. Even issues, major issues we have dealt with. We've traveled with our puppet theater up till the Mikran coast, all over Pakistan. You know, it was very easy to, because there is, with puppet, what happens, I have observed many times, in schools, when the performance is happening, children are there watching this. Puppet is a puppet for first 1 minute. After that 1 minute, the puppet becomes a human being. And you start interacting with that. So, I think the contribution coming from doing these shows and making these certain programs, like we did a major program with women's ministry, where we did a huge big project traveling all over Pakistan, talking about the rights of women as given by our own religion, which is generally not talked about. Nobody talks about it. So it was very difficult to convey this message across into small towns. But through the art of puppetry and the theater, it was transported to all those people there. Rafi Peer Theatre Workshop has contributed massively into art forms of dance, theatre. We've trained people. Unfortunately, in our now certain universities and colleges are teaching visual arts. 10 years from today, there was no visual arts. Nobody was teaching. It was not considered important as a subject. At that time, it was important for us to work out and make people realize that you require an education. Like, people were not trained in theater. There were no acting schools. Most of us learned from each other, you know, or we learned from observing and watching people perform. And some of us who were lucky, who went to Government College Lahore, which was this very powerful dramatic club. So we learned there, but there were no schools. So if you had to learn, you had to go straight onto a job. And the way society looked at this art form, I'll share a moment with you that once, when I was regularly working in movies as an actor, a friend of mine from college, who used to be our weightlifter, champion weightlifter, he came to meet me. And he said, Peerzada Sahab, वो अपना भाई दा बेटा है, उन्होंने टेक्नीशियन लवाना है स्टूडियो दे विच। मैंने कहा अच्छा टेक्नीशियन की मतलब ताड़ा? उन्हें कहा जी उन्होंने सी अगर वो कैमरा डिपार्टमेंट च आ जाए तो बाद अल्लाह करे कि कैमरामैन बन जाए। तो मैंने कहा अच्छा तो वो की करता है? उन्होंने कहा जी वो बस गलत कंपनी चला गया सी ते वो पिछे शराब पींदा फड़िया गया, जुआ खेड रहे सन। ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਜੀ ਬੜੀ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲ ਨਾਲ ਛੜਾ ਕੇ ਥਾਣੇ ਤੋਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਲਿਆਏ ਆ। 3-4 ਦਿਨ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਛੁਰੀ ਮਾਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ 6 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ ਤੋਂ ਆਇਆ। ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਟੈਕਨੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦੇ 'ਚ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਵੇ, which meant कि person जो कि अपनी ज़िंदगी में फारिग हो चुका हुआ है, you know, and he is no good, send him to this place, you know, and above all to become a cameraman, you know. So this is how the society probably looked at this form. It was not considered a serious form. Our theatre slowly and gradually started degenerating into bad, horrible, comic satire. Today, हमारे जितने न्यूज़ चैनल्स हैं, उनके ऊपर सबसे बड़ा पॉलिटिकल और सोशल कमेंट करने वाले थिएटर के मुखाली हैं, सारे के सारे. हाँ, that's true, because it's a show which sells like that. It's very important for us that we somehow or the other work out that our roots and our culture, our children, young youth like you guys, should understand and know. I don't want my grandchild to write Pakistan by B, Pakistan. I don't want. That's what is happening. We have Pakistan now. You see the cars in Punjab, it says Pakistan. Why are we saying Pakistan? We are not Arabs, for God's sake. I am not an Arab. I am a person born here. So we need to do something about that. मुझे एक तो कि हम I don't know कि आप में से कितने बच्चे अपने घर में अपनी ज़ुबान बोलते हैं पंजाबी कोई भी नहीं बोलता उर्दू में बोलते हैं हमारे माँ बाप ने भी हमसे हमेशा उर्दू में बात की because we love Urdu, we Punjabis, we respect Urdu and we appreciate Urdu. There is nothing wrong with Urdu. Sindhis speak in Sindhi even in their home. Punjabis don't, not in the cities. Punjabis do speak Punjabi when they are in smaller towns, but they don't. Our children do not know our folklore. Our children do not know our stories. They have not read our novels. I don't know how many of you have read Udas Naslein or Aag Ka Darya. I have no idea. I do not know whether आपने शाह हुसैन को पढ़ा है कि आपने बुल्ले शाह सिर्फ 2-4 दफ़ा वो गिटार पे गाने वाले बंदे को सुना है क्या आपने वाकई बुल्ले शाह को पढ़ा है क्या आपने वाकई कभी हीर को बैठ के सुना है सारी रात सुबह तक नहीं सुना लॉग फायर जल रहा हो एंड यू आर हियरिंग हीर आपको नहीं पता कि मिर्ज़ा जट की कहानी क्या थी मिर्ज़ा जट कौन था और क्यों लिखी गई ये कहानी एंड व्हाई are these important? Why are these folklores important for us? They are very, very important. Without that, you are a totally lost society. You are impressed and inspired by things which do not belong to you. Now, as the media has squeezed us and we have information on our fingertips, and we can travel the whole world very fast. In this, where the waves are bringing in hundreds of channels, and you can't censor them anymore, so you can't protect your society by censoring these things. The only way a strong society remains intact when its own cultural bearing is right. When their own roots are strong, when they themselves feel, yes, this is who we are, this is what we are proud of. How many of us are proud of what? We have made, Jinnah is no more a person for us. Jinnah is a symbol that we bow down to. Allama Iqbal is Sir Muhammad Allama Iqbal. He is not the great poet that we should feel and read. How many of us have actually read Allama Iqbal? Or we just hear him on television and we hear him on certain books and things. How many of us have read his best poetry, which is in Persian language, because we do not know Persian language. We don't even know Arabic, because there is so unfortunate. Our religion is in Arabic, but we are Ratu Totas. We just we've ratified the namaz. We do not know the language because we have not learnt it. There were many choices for me. Why should I become an actor? Why should I be a filmmaker? Why should I write for theater? Why should I dabble in poetry? Why should I do music? Why should I dance? We have slowly and gradually killed things in our country. Lahore's best festival was Basant. We destroyed that festival. We could not go and stop the person who was making that damn tandi. We stopped the whole festival. And you know what is the repercussion of stopping that festival? So many families went out of job. It was the craftsmen, it was a handicraft. Kite is a handicraft. And all those families went out of job. Those guys went out of job. 2 years more down the lane, they will forget how to make that kite. Like we are already forgotten जो हमारी अपनी यहाँ की puppets थी, आप लोगों ने नहीं देखी हुई, हमने देखी हुई है बचपन में, कि puppeteer किस तरह घूमता था, अपने आप को मार्केट करता था, दोपहर के वक्त we could hear him and then we would book him, he would come to your house and perform. 2 मंजियाँ 3 मंजियाँ रख के, लालटेनें रख के, उसकी बीवी बैठ के तबले के ऊपर वो वाली कहानी गाती थी और वो पपेटियर जो है अपने मुंह में 2 वो स्टिक्स के अंदर रबर डला हुआ वो उससे आवाज़ निकालता था और वो परफॉर्मेंस होती थी. Do you know that those puppeteers are almost dying? They have left their job. They are not teaching that to their children because वो आर्ट फॉर्म जो है वो किसी यूनिवर्सिटी और कॉलेज में नहीं पढ़ाया जाता था. That सीना पसीना वो चलता था. अभी हम 7 ख़ानदानों को प्रोटेक्ट किए हुए हैं बड़ी मुश्किल से और उनको समझाया है कि देखो अपने बच्चों को ये अब अंडे बेच रहे हैं तुम्हारे बच्चे रेलवे स्टेशन पे, खुदा का वास्ते इसको ये वाला काम सिखाओ. They have already forgotten how to carve the puppet from the wooden plank. We brought in puppeteers from India who are almost their tribe because in Rajasthan we share the same tradition and we ran workshops for our puppeteers to not forget this, but to learn this craft. Now you might ask me, puppeteer, putli kyun bhai? Ye टी pee pee wali kis liye? Bhai, this is a part of your heritage. How can you let it go that it just disappears forever from our lives? That we can't even look back and say, okay, we had this tradition, but what happened to it? Like that, so many other traditions are going to die. And I'm going to end.